The stars above Earth shone brightly on what seemed like an ordinary night. Humanity had long dreamed of meeting intelligent life beyond their planet, imagining peaceful exchanges and shared knowledge. But no one could have predicted the truth. When aliens finally arrived, they came not as friends, but as conquerors. It all began with a message broadcast across every television, radio, and internet channel worldwide. The voice was cold, mechanical, and devoid of emotion. It belonged to the Zarkonians, a race that claimed dominion over the galaxy under the authority of the Galactic Council. Their demands were clear. Earth must surrender unconditionally, hand over its resources, and submit to their rule. Failure to comply would result in annihilation. Yongjin Park sat in his dimly lit office, staring at the screen displaying the alien transmission. His mind raced with thoughts about what this meant for humanity. A former military strategist turned civilian leader, Yongjin was known for his calm demeanor and sharp intellect. He had spent years preparing contingency plans for disasters, both natural and man-made, but nothing could have prepared him for this. Across town, Hai-Min Lee watched the same broadcast from her small apartment. Unlike Yongjin, she wasn't thinking about strategies or politics. Her fists clenched tightly as anger surged through her veins. She had always been a fighter, first in martial arts competitions, then as a pilot in the Air Force, and the idea of bowing to anyone, let alone aliens, felt like poison to her soul. Meanwhile, Jae-Sung Kim worked tirelessly in a lab buried deep beneath the city. He was a scientist whose curiosity knew no bounds, and right now, he was poring over data collected from strange signals detected earlier that week. These signals weren't random noise. They carried patterns too complex to be natural. Jae-Sung suspected they were linked to the Zarkonians, though he couldn't prove it yet. As the deadline for Earth's surrender approached, world leaders convened in secret to discuss their options. Some argued for compliance, believing resistance would only lead to destruction. Others insisted on fighting back, even if victory seemed impossible. Yongjin found himself thrust into the role of mediator, tasked with guiding these fractured discussions toward a decision. "We can't just roll over and die," Hai-Min said during one heated session. She had joined the meeting after being called upon for her expertise in aerial combat. "If we fight, there's a chance we survive. If we give up, we're already dead." Her words resonated with many, including Yongjin. Still, the odds were overwhelmingly against them. The Zarkonians possessed technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Their ships floated effortlessly in orbit, impervious to Earth's most advanced missiles. Even their communication methods baffled scientists like Jae-Sung, who struggled to understand how such intricate systems functioned. Despite the grim reality, Yongjin refused to lose hope. He gathered a team of trusted advisors, including Hai-Min and Jae-Sung, and began formulating a plan. They knew direct confrontation would end in disaster, so they focused instead on exploiting the enemy's weaknesses. The Zarkonians relied heavily on logic and precision, leaving little room for improvisation. Perhaps, Yongjin thought, this rigidity could work against them. Days passed in a blur of preparation. Hai-Min trained pilots day and night, pushing them to their limits while teaching unconventional tactics designed to confuse and disorient the enemy. Jae-Sung worked around the clock, analyzing fragments of alien tech recovered from crashed drones. Each discovery brought them closer to understanding their foe and finding ways to level the playing field. Finally, the moment arrived. The Zarkonians launched their first attack, targeting major cities across the globe. Seoul bore the brunt of the assault, its skyline reduced to rubble within minutes. Fires raged unchecked as terrified citizens fled for their lives. Among the chaos stood Yongjin, watching helplessly as his hometown crumbled before his eyes. But despair quickly gave way to determination. Using the element of surprise, Yongjin ordered a counterattack. Small teams of fighters, led by Hai-Min, struck at key points where the Zarkonians least expected resistance. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and retreating before the enemy could respond effectively. Though vastly outnumbered and outgunned, humanity managed to inflict significant damage. Back in the lab, Jae-Sung made a breakthrough. By reverse engineering a piece of alien circuitry, he discovered a vulnerability in the Zarkonian shields. With this knowledge, he developed a prototype weapon capable of penetrating their defenses. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to tip the scales slightly in humanity's favor. The battle reached its climax when Haya-Min led a daring raid on a Zarkonian command ship hovering above Sol. Flying at breakneck speeds, she dodged laser fire and missile barrages, weaving between massive alien vessels with breathtaking skill. Her objective was simple yet perilous: disable the ship's main reactor and force it to crash. Against all odds, she succeeded. The command ship exploded in a fiery inferno, sending shockwaves through the Zarkonian fleet. Morale soared among Earth's defenders as they realized victory was possible, even against seemingly invincible foes. When the dust settled, the cost of the battle became painfully clear. Sol lay in ruins, its streets littered with debris and bodies. Thousands had died, and countless more were injured or displaced. Yet amidst the devastation, a spark of defiance burned brighter than ever. Humanity had proven it wouldn't go down without a fight. Yongjin addressed the survivors via emergency broadcast, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "Today, we showed the Zarkonians that Earth will not bow to tyranny," he declared. "This is our home, and we will defend it until our last breath." Haya-Min listened to his words from the cockpit of her battered fighter jet. Exhaustion tugged at her limbs, but pride filled her heart. For the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself to believe they might actually stand a chance. Jae-sung, meanwhile, returned to his lab with renewed purpose. The prototype weapon needed refinement, and he vowed to make it ready for the next encounter. As he tinkered with circuits and wires, he couldn't shake the feeling that this war would change everything, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Little did they know, the Zarkonians were equally stunned by humanity's audacity. Back on their homeworld, members of the Galactic Council convened in secret, debating how to handle this unexpected challenge. They had underestimated Earth, assuming its inhabitants would capitulate without resistance. Now, faced with a species willing to sacrifice everything for freedom, they realized they might have awakened something far more dangerous than they anticipated. And so, the stage was set for a conflict unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Humanity had drawn a line in the sand, refusing to back down even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Zarkonians had challenged Earth, but in doing so, they had ignited a firestorm that would soon engulf the stars themselves. The aftermath of the battle for Sol was a grim reminder of the cost of defiance. The city, once vibrant and alive, now lay in ruins. Smoke curled into the sky from countless fires that refused to die out, and the streets were eerily silent, except for the distant cries of survivors searching for loved ones. Yet, amidst the devastation, something remarkable began to take shape: hope. Yongjin Park stood on a makeshift platform in the heart of what used to be Seoul's central square. His clothes were torn and stained with soot, but his eyes burned with determination. Around him, a crowd of weary yet resolute citizens gathered, their faces reflecting both grief and resolve. He spoke loudly, his voice carrying over the wreckage. "We have lost much," Yongjin said, pausing to let his words sink in. "But we have also gained something priceless, proof that we can fight back. The Zarkonians thought we would crumble. Instead, we struck them where it hurt. This is only the beginning." His speech ignited a spark among the people. Workers who had once built skyscrapers now turned their skills toward repairing damaged infrastructure. Farmers shared food supplies, ensuring no one went hungry, and soldiers, pilots, and civilians alike volunteered for whatever role they could play in the war effort. Humanity was battered but far from broken. Heemin Lee walked through the ruins of her old neighborhood, memories flooding back with every step. Her home was gone, reduced to rubble like everything else. But she didn't linger on the loss. Instead, she focused on training new recruits at a hastily constructed airbase outside the city. Dozens of young men and women lined up daily, eager to join the fight. Some came with military experience, others had never held a weapon before. All shared one thing: a fierce desire to protect Earth. Flying isn't just about skill. He-Min told her trainees as they prepared for another practice run. It's about thinking faster than your enemy. Out here, hesitation means death. So when I say move, you move. No questions. Her reputation as a fearless pilot spread quickly, earning her the nickname Stormblade among her team. Despite her gruff exterior, He-Min cared deeply for her squadron. She pushed them hard because she knew the stakes. They weren't just fighting for themselves, but for everyone left behind. Meanwhile, Jae-Sung Kim worked tirelessly in an underground lab hidden beneath layers of reinforced concrete. The prototype weapon he'd developed during the battle for Seoul had proven effective, but it needed improvement. With limited resources and time running out, Jae-Sung poured every ounce of energy into refining the design. Sleep became a luxury he couldn't afford. One night, while analyzing data from a captured Zarkonian drone, Jae-Sung stumbled upon something extraordinary. Buried within the alien tech was encrypted information, a record of communications between the Zarkonians and their Galactic Council overlords. After hours of decoding, he uncovered evidence of corruption within the Council itself. It seemed the Zarkonians weren't acting solely out of loyalty to their leaders. They were following orders designed to maintain control over weaker species. This changes everything, Jae-Sung muttered to himself, staring at the screen in disbelief. If this information could be broadcast across the galaxy, it might inspire other oppressed planets to rise up against the Council. Humanity wouldn't have to face the Zarkonians alone. Word of Jae-Sung's discovery reached Yongjin, who immediately recognized its potential. He assembled a small team, including Hye-min, to plan a mission aimed at spreading the truth. They decided to target a heavily guarded Zarkonian labor camp located on a nearby moon. Not only would freeing the prisoners deal a blow to the enemy's operations, but it would also provide an opportunity to distribute the decoded messages. The mission required precision and stealth, two things humanity lacked compared to the Zarkonians. But necessity breeds innovation. Using scavenged parts and ingenuity, Jae-Sung modified several fighter jets to mimic Zarkonian ships. Pilots trained extensively to replicate enemy flight patterns, hoping to slip past detection long enough to reach the camp. On the day of the operation, He-Min led the strike team. As they approached the moon, tension crackled in the cockpit. Every second felt like an eternity. When they finally entered the camp's airspace, alarms blared, signaling their presence. The disguise hadn't held. "Plan B!" Hye-Min shouted into her communicator. "All units, engage!" Chaos erupted as human fighters clashed with Zarkonian guards. Explosions lit up the dark lunar surface, casting eerie shadows across the battlefield. Hye-Min maneuvered her jet with unmatched agility, taking down enemy ships one by one. On the ground, resistance fighters armed with crude weapons stormed the prison barracks, freeing hundreds of captives. Among the freed prisoners was a group of engineers from a distant planet called Vera. Their expertise in advanced mechanics proved invaluable. Together, they helped modify additional alien tech recovered during the raid, giving humanity even more tools to use against the Zarkonians. Back on Earth, morale soared thanks to news of the successful mission. Videos of liberated prisoners, sharing stories of oppression went viral, inspiring others across the galaxy to question the Council's authority. For the first time, humanity wasn't alone in its struggle. But victory came at a price. During the retreat, He-Min's ship sustained heavy damage. Struggling to maintain control, she guided her jet toward a safe landing zone, while enemy fire rained down around her. Just as she thought she wouldn't make it, reinforcements arrived, Earth's newly upgraded fleet, armed with Jae-Sung's improved weapons. "You're clear, Stormblade," a fellow pilot radioed. "Get out of there!" With seconds to spare, Hye-Min ejected from her crippled jet moments before it exploded. She landed safely, though shaken, and vowed to return stronger than ever. As the days passed, humanity continued to rebuild and adapt. Cities rose from the ashes, fueled by collective determination. Factories churned out improved versions of Jae-Sung's weapon, while Yongjin coordinated alliances with rebel factions from other planets. Slowly but surely, a united front began to form, a coalition dedicated to overthrowing the Galactic Council. Yet the Zarkonians weren't idle. Enraged by the recent setbacks, they prepared for a massive offensive aimed at wiping out Earth's remaining cities. Intelligence reports warned of an impending attack far greater than anything humanity had faced before. Yongjin called an emergency meeting to discuss strategies. "We can't win this war by brute force alone," he said, pacing the room. "We need to hit them where it hurts, their belief that they're invincible. We need to show them fear." Haimin nodded, her expression grim. "And we need to do it fast. Once they launch that attack, we won't get another chance." Jae-sung leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I've been working on something bigger, something that could turn the tide permanently." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. Whatever Jae-sung had in mind, it carried the weight of humanity's survival and possibly the fate of the entire galaxy. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear: humanity had found its footing. From the ashes of destruction, a spirit of resilience emerged, stronger and more defiant than ever. The Zarkonians had underestimated Earth once. They wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The galaxy was vast and full of secrets, but humanity had always been good at uncovering them. After the daring raid on the Zarkonian labor camp, word spread quickly about Earth's defiance. Messages carried by liberated prisoners reached distant planets, sparking whispers of rebellion among oppressed species. For the first time, humanity wasn't fighting alone. Yongjin Park stood aboard a small spacecraft, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. The journey ahead would take him to alien worlds he'd only read about in books. His mission was clear: unite these scattered factions under one banner, a coalition determined to overthrow the Galactic Council. It wouldn't be easy. Many doubted whether fragile alliances could withstand the might of the Zarkonians. But Yongjin believed in the power of shared purpose. His first stop was Vera, a planet known for its brilliant engineers who had once served as slaves to the Council. When Yongjin arrived, he was greeted cautiously by Kyle, a tall, wiry man with sharp features and an even sharper mind. Kyle had led the Veran resistance during their fight for freedom, and his people were wary of outsiders. "We've heard your story," Kyle said, crossing his arms as he studied Yongjin. "You humans are brave, or foolish. What makes you think we'll risk everything again?" Yongjin didn't flinch. "Because this isn't just about Earth anymore. If the Council falls, no one will live in fear of their tyranny. Together, we can make that happen." Kyle hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Show me what you've got." Over the next few days, Yongjin presented evidence of the Council's corruption, including Jae-sung's decoded messages. He also demonstrated Earth's new weapons, showcasing how human ingenuity combined with alien tech could level the playing field. By the time he left Vera, Kale and his engineers had agreed to join the coalition, bringing invaluable expertise and resources. Hye-min Lee remained on Earth, overseeing training operations for the growing rebel fleet. More recruits poured in, daily, drawn by tales of Stormblade's heroics. Among them were pilots from other species, eager to contribute their skills. Hye-min welcomed them all, though not without challenges. Cultural differences sometimes led to misunderstandings, and tensions occasionally flared between groups used to seeing each other as enemies. One evening, after a particularly heated argument between two squadrons, Hye-min gathered everyone in the hangar. Standing before rows of faces representing different races and backgrounds, she spoke firmly. "We're here because we share something important," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "We don't want to live in fear. We don't want to bow to anyone. That means setting aside our differences and focusing on what matters, winning this war." Her words struck a chord. From that day forward, cooperation improved, and bonds began to form. Pilots worked side by side, learning from one another and developing tactics tailored to their diverse strengths. Meanwhile, Jae-sung Kim labored tirelessly in his underground lab, driven by a vision that grew clearer with each passing day. The prototype weapon he'd developed earlier was impressive, but it wasn't enough to dismantle the Council entirely. He needed something bigger, something capable of striking at the heart of their empire. Late one night, inspiration struck. Using data collected from captured Zarkonian ships, Jae-sung designed a device capable of disrupting the Council's central hub, a massive structure orbiting their homeworld where all decisions were made. The device would overload the hub's systems, rendering it useless and plunging the Council into chaos. It was risky, requiring precision timing and coordination, but if successful, it could cripple their ability to enforce control. When Jae-sung presented his idea to Yong-jin and Hyman, they were skeptical at first. Such a plan required splitting their forces and executing multiple operations simultaneously. Failure at any stage would mean disaster. "It's our best shot," Jae-sung insisted, his eyes gleaming with conviction. "If we hit them hard enough, fast enough, they won't recover." After much debate, they agreed to proceed. Plans were drawn up, roles assigned, and preparations began in earnest. Every member of the coalition played a part, from engineers building the device to spies gathering intelligence on the Council's defenses. As the final stages of preparation unfolded, internal tensions within the coalition surfaced. Some leaders questioned whether humanity should lead the rebellion, given their late entry into galactic affairs. Others argued over strategy, fearing losses might outweigh gains. These disagreements threatened to unravel everything they'd built. Yong-jin addressed the issue head-on during a coalition meeting. "I understand your concerns," he said, his tone calm yet firm. "But this isn't about pride or leadership. It's about survival, for all of us. If we let doubt divide us, the Council wins. Is that what we want?" His words silenced the room. Slowly, nods of agreement spread, and unity was restored. Though uneasy, the coalition held together, bound by a common goal. The Zarkonians, meanwhile, prepared for their largest offensive yet. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture. Thousands of ships massing near Earth's orbit, ready to deliver a crushing blow. Time was running out. On the eve of the attack, Yong-jin returned to Earth, exhausted but resolute. He met with Hye-min and Jae-sung in a secure bunker beneath the ruins of Seoul. Maps and schematics covered the walls, detailing every aspect of their upcoming assault. "This is it," Yong-jin said, looking at his companions. "Everything we've worked for comes down to this. If we succeed, the Council falls. If we fail—" He didn't finish the sentence. They all knew what failure meant. Hye-min placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we don't fail." Jae-sung adjusted his glasses, a nervous habit he'd never managed to break. "Let's make sure we don't." Outside, the sky darkened as clouds rolled in, signaling the approach of a storm. Humanity had faced countless storms before, both literal and metaphorical. This time, however, they weren't facing it alone. Across the galaxy, allies stood ready to fight alongside them, united by a shared dream of freedom. The stage was set for the final confrontation. Humanity had risen from the ashes of destruction, forged alliances with former foes, and prepared to strike at the very core of oppression. The Zarkonians had challenged Earth, and now humanity would answer with everything they had. The galaxy held its breath as humanity and its allies prepared for the most daring operation in their history. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon had been mobilized for this one chance to strike at the heart of the Galactic Council. Failure was not an option, not when the fate of billions rested on their shoulders. Yong-jin Park stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Phoenix Dawn, staring at a holographic map of the Council's homeworld. The central hub, a colossal structure floating in orbit, glowed ominously, a symbol of oppression that loomed over the galaxy. It was the nerve center of the Council's power, controlling everything from military movements to resource distribution. If it fell, so would the Council's ability to dominate. "We've only got one shot at this," Yong-jin said to his advisors, who surrounded him in the dimly lit room. "Every team has to execute their part perfectly. Any mistake could cost us everything." Hye-min Lee sat nearby, her hands gripping the edge of the table as she studied the plan. Her role would be critical, leading the infiltration team tasked with disabling the hub's outer defenses. Without her squad's success, Jae-sung's device wouldn't stand a chance of reaching its target. "Don't worry," she said, meeting Yong-jin's gaze. "We'll get through. Just make sure the fleet keeps them busy while we do our job." Jae-sung Kim worked feverishly in the engineering bay, fine-tuning the device that could dismantle the hub. It was a sleek, metallic cylinder bristling with wires and circuits designed to emit a pulse capable of overloading the hub systems, but it wasn't without risks. If something went wrong during deployment, the pulse could backfire, destroying the entire rebel fleet instead. This thing better work, Jae-sung muttered to himself, wiping sweat from his brow. Around him, engineers scurried like ants, running final checks and ensuring every component functioned flawlessly. He knew the pressure rested squarely on his shoulders. One miscalculation, and all their sacrifices would be for nothing. As the fleet approached the Council's homeworld, tension crackled through the air. Pilots exchanged nervous glances, some whispering prayers or silently steeling themselves for battle. Hai Min addressed her squadron over the comms, her voice steady despite the weight of what lay ahead. "Remember why we're here," she said. "Not just for ourselves, but for everyone counting on us. Stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and don't stop until the mission is done." The first wave of ships launched, drawing the attention of the Zarkonian fleet stationed near the hub. Explosions erupted across the void as human and alien fighters clashed with the enemy, creating chaos meant to mask the infiltration team's approach. Youngjin watched the battle unfold from the Phoenix Dawn, his jaw clenched as he monitored reports streaming in from the front lines. "They're holding their own," one officer reported, pointing to a screen showing the skirmish. "But they're outnumbered. We can't keep this up forever." "Then we'd better move fast," Yongjin replied, turning to another monitor displaying Hemin's progress. Her ship slipped past the main engagement zone, heading straight for the hub's docking bay. Inside, her team prepared to disembark, clad in stolen Zarkonian armor to blend in with the station's defenders. When they landed, Hemin led the charge, moving swiftly through corridors lined with glowing panels and humming machinery. Resistance came quickly. Zarkonian guards patrolling the area opened fire as soon as they spotted intruders. Hemin ducked behind cover, returning fire with precision shots that took down multiple enemies in seconds. "Keep moving," she shouted to her team. "We don't have time to waste." Behind her, engineers worked frantically to disable security systems blocking their path. Alarms blared throughout the station, warning of the breach. Reinforcements poured in, forcing Hai Min and her squad to fight harder than ever before. Each step forward felt like a battle won against overwhelming odds. Meanwhile, Jae-sung coordinated, with Yongjin aboard the Phoenix Dawn, guiding the fleet's maneuvers to create openings for Hai Min's team. Sweat dripped down his face as he relayed instructions to pilots navigating treacherous asteroid fields around the hub. "We need more cover fire on Sector 7, Jae-sung called out, his voice strained. "They're closing in too fast." Yongjin nodded to his crew, who relayed the order to nearby ships. Missiles streaked through space, obliterating enemy vessels attempting to flank the rebels. For now, the Zarkonians were distracted, but it wouldn't last long. Back inside the hub, Hai Min reached the control room housing the system's core. She planted explosives along the walls, setting timers to destroy key components that powered the outer defenses. As she worked, a massive Zarkonian commander entered the chamber, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. "You will not succeed," the commander growled, raising a plasma blade. Hemin didn't hesitate. Drawing her own weapon, she engaged the alien in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal, each blow reverberating through the room. Despite the size difference, Hemin relied on speed and agility, dodging attacks and countering with precise strikes. Finally, seizing an opening, she drove, her blade into the commander's chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Breathing heavily, she activated the explosives and signaled her team to retreat. "Let's go! Now!" Outside, the fleet regrouped as explosions rocked the hub's exterior. Defensive turrets went offline, leaving the central structure vulnerable. Jae-sung seized the opportunity, launching the device toward its target. Guided by remote controls, the cylinder sped through space, evading debris and enemy fire until it reached the hub's core. "All units, pull back," Yongjin ordered, watching anxiously as the device locked onto its destination. "This is it." Seconds later, a blinding flash illuminated the battlefield as the pulse detonated. Systems within the hub overloaded, cascading failures spreading like wildfire. Lights flickered and died. Communication channels collapsed, and entire sections of the structure began to crumble. The Galactic Council's grip on the galaxy shattered in an instant. Cheers erupted across the rebel fleet as news of the victory spread. Pilots who moments earlier had been fighting for their lives now celebrated openly, hugging one another and shouting in triumph. On Earth, survivors gathered around screens broadcasting live footage of the hub's destruction, tears streaming down their faces. But amid the jubilation, there was also grief. Many had fallen during the assault, their sacrifices ensuring the success of the mission. Hyamin returned to the Phoenix Dawn battered and bruised, her armor scorched and dented. She collapsed into a chair, exhaustion overtaking her body. "We did it," she whispered, staring at the stars. "We actually did it." Yongjin joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, we did, but this isn't the end. There's still much to rebuild and much to protect." Jae-sung staggered into the room moments later, clutching a data pad filled with information salvaged from the hub. His face was pale, but his eyes gleamed with determination. "I've got something you need to see," he said, holding up the pad. "It's about the Council's plans and what comes next." Though the immediate threat had been neutralized, the war wasn't truly over. The Council's fall created a power vacuum, and already whispers of unrest echoed across the Bao galaxy. Humanity had struck a decisive blow, but maintaining peace would require vigilance and unity. For now, however, they allowed themselves a moment to savor their hard-fought victory. Against all odds, humanity had risen to challenge the greatest power in the galaxy, and emerged victorious. The road ahead remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: the stars belonged to no one and everyone all at once. The galaxy was forever changed. The destruction of the Galactic Council's central hub marked the end of an era dominated by oppression and tyranny. For the first time in centuries, oppressed species across the stars dared to dream of freedom. Yet the cost of victory weighed heavily on those who had fought for it. Yongjin Park stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Dawn, gazing at the wreckage of the hub as it drifted silently in orbit around the Council's homeworld. The once imposing structure now resembled a broken shell, its systems dead and its purpose erased. Around him, crew members worked tirelessly to assess damages and ensure the fleet remained operational. Despite the triumph, there was no time to rest. "We've won the battle," Yongjin said to his advisors, his voice tinged with both pride and sorrow. "But the war isn't over yet. The Council may be gone, but their legacy of fear still lingers." Hyamin Lee sat nearby, her body battered from the infiltration mission, but her spirit unbroken. She stared out at the stars, her mind replaying the faces of comrades lost during the assault. Each one had given everything for this cause, for hope. Their sacrifices couldn't be forgotten. "We'll honor them," she said quietly, as if reading Yongjin's thoughts, "by making sure this never happens again." Jae-sung Kim approached, holding the datapad containing information salvaged from the hub. His face was pale, his movements slow, but his determination burned brighter than ever. He placed the pad on the table and activated its display, revealing classified documents detailing the Council's plans for galactic domination. "They were building weapons more powerful than anything we've seen," Jae-sung explained, pointing to schematics of massive constructs designed to annihilate entire planets. "If we hadn't stopped them, they would have used these against anyone who resisted." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the gravity of what could have been. Humanity, and the Coalition, had narrowly avoided catastrophe. But the discovery also raised new questions. Who else might seek to fill the power vacuum left by the Council? And how could they prevent another tyrannical force from rising? "We need to stay vigilant," Yongjin declared, breaking the silence. "The Council's fall doesn't mean peace. It means opportunity. We must use this moment to rebuild, not just Earth, but the galaxy itself." Plans were set in motion to dismantle the remnants of the Council's empire. Rebel forces coordinated efforts to liberate occupied planets, freeing populations enslaved under Zarkonian rule. Engineers worked alongside scientists like Jae-sung to repurpose alien technology for peaceful purposes, turning tools of war into instruments of progress. Slowly but surely, the galaxy began to heal. He-Men played a crucial role in these efforts, leading missions to secure key locations and protect vulnerable communities. Her reputation as Stormblade spread far beyond Earth, earning her respect even among former enemies. Wherever she went, she inspired others to join the fight for freedom, not through violence, but through unity. One such mission took her to a distant colony ravaged by years of exploitation. The people there lived in squalor, their resources stripped away by the Council's greed. When Hye-min arrived with supplies and support teams, she found herself surrounded by grateful survivors desperate for change. "You showed us that we don't have to live like this," an elder said, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Thank you." Hye-min knelt beside him, her heart swelling with emotion. "This is just the beginning," she replied softly. "Together we can build something better." Back on Earth, Yongjin addressed the world via emergency broadcast, his words reaching billions across the planet and beyond. Standing amidst the ruins of Seoul, he spoke of resilience, sacrifice, and hope. "Today, we mourn those we've lost," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of grief. "But we also celebrate what they gave us, a chance to shape our future. The road ahead will not be easy. There will be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But if we stand together, as one humanity, and as part of a united galaxy, we can overcome anything." His speech resonated deeply, sparking renewed determination among survivors. Cities rose from the ashes, rebuilt stronger and more connected than before. Schools reopened, farms flourished, and factories hummed with activity as humanity poured its energy into creating a brighter tomorrow. Jae-sung continued his work in the underground lab, driven by a vision of a galaxy free from oppression. Using knowledge gained from the Council's archives, he developed technologies aimed at fostering cooperation rather than conflict. Communication devices capable of bridging language barriers, medical advancements that saved countless lives, and clean energy solutions became symbols of humanity's ingenuity. Yet, despite the progress, shadows lingered. Not everyone welcomed the collapse of the Council's regime. Some factions sought to exploit the chaos, vying for control in the absence of centralized authority. Skirmishes broke out on border planets, threatening to reignite old rivalries. To address these threats, Yongjin proposed the formation of a new governing body, a galactic assembly built on principles of equality, transparency, and mutual respect. Representatives from every species and planet would come together to forge policies that benefited all, ensuring no single group held unchecked power. "It won't be perfect," Yongjin admitted during a meeting with coalition leaders. "But it's a start, a step toward a future where no one has to live in fear." The idea gained traction, supported by allies who recognized the importance of collaboration. Slowly, trust began to form between former adversaries, laying the foundation for lasting peace. Years passed, and the scars of war faded, but not entirely. Memorials were erected to honor those who had fallen, their names etched into stone as reminders of the price paid for freedom. Among them was Hye-min, who eventually retired from active duty to dedicate her life to mentoring young pilots. Though her body bore the marks of countless battles, her spirit remained unyielding. Yongjin, too, stepped back from leadership, content to watch the next generation take up the mantle. From his home overlooking Seoul, he often reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. What began as a struggle for survival had transformed into a movement for justice, a testament to the strength of unity and courage. Jae-sung continued his research, always seeking ways to improve life across the galaxy. His inventions became cornerstones of interstellar society, bridging gaps between cultures and fostering understanding. Though he rarely sought recognition, his contributions earned him a place among history's greatest minds. On a quiet evening, Yongjin visited a memorial dedicated to the heroes of the rebellion. Names stretched endlessly across its surface, each representing a life given for a better tomorrow. He paused before Hye-min's name, running his fingers over the engraved letters. "We did it," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "You'd be proud." Above him, the stars twinkled brightly, their light undimmed by the darkness of the past. Humanity had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not through conquest, but through defiance and unity. The Zarkonians had challenged, Earth believing it weak and insignificant. Instead, they awakened a firestorm that swept across the galaxy, toppling empires and reshaping destinies. And so the story of humanity's rise became legend, a tale told across worlds, inspiring generations to come. The Council had fallen, but something greater had risen in its place. A galaxy united, determined to build a future defined not by fear, but by hope.